Mic and camera alive.
Okay, mic and cameras are alive. It's 4 o'clock, February 26th. We're here for the ad hoc Sugar Valley Rural Charter School negotiations. And Dr. Redmond, would you like to start?
So we looked at the amendment requests, and I think the KCSD administration has a couple of recommendations, and some of them came from our meeting last week. So I really appreciate our time together. And I don't have these as written as specific language necessarily, but kind of ideas that I think we should talk about and work on.
Could you tell us what you learned over there with them and all
Sure.
that?
Well, so in our conversation, we were talking about, oh, thank you. We're talking about the idea of testing and worked through specifically what I termed the granularity of data that teachers are getting to help support the MTSS system. We talked about how your team was using MAP testing as that universal screener, which is great. We do the same thing, but then looking at some different ideas around the diagnostic testing and progress monitoring. And so I think that's an important thing for us to think about. How do we include that in our agreement? That you're using, rather than just having kind of a bulk second level of test the way it was written before, but really look at separating that out into screening, diagnostic and progress monitoring testing. And I don't think that we KCSD necessarily has an interest in specifying what those things are, but kind of what we talked about, that we talked about a list of things that you might use, but that's kind of up to you and your team to figure out what's most appropriate. But that those things are included in support of the MTS system, I think would be appropriate to have as part of our agreement. So did I capture that from your perspective about our conversation anyway, in terms of looking at that screening, diagnostic, progress monitoring system?
Yeah, I think just the conversation in general, we kind of covered.
Talk into that mic. Well, you can pull it down.
Sure.
That way it
we
gets.
we spent that time just kind of sharing about, what are some of the pieces that you have in place at your schools at, various grade levels, and I guess what our progress monitoring looks like now versus what tools you have in place in order to accomplish that, and how frequently you're using them, and how. So,
Yeah, we are progress monitoring. It's just a different look than yours at this point.
Yeah, and we
So
talked
it's not that
about,
we're not doing it. We are.
right. So
So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
We are using that.
and we talked also about the amount of time, because that was one of the concerns that
Right.
was brought up, the amount of
It's
time
like,
it takes.
yeah,
The systems that we use are really quick. They're in the classroom, that it's kind of invisible to students, that it's not a separate test necessarily that we're giving to all kids, but it's kind of some of those tools that are already built into our curricular systems that we can use for some of that progress monitoring.
and that's for tier 2 and tier 3, not all students.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
That was kind of the bulk of our meeting. And we also talked about having you, Brock, come over and kind of see some of the things that we're doing. And we look forward to setting up those meetings and creating a tighter relationship between Sugar Valley Rural Charter School and KCSD. I think we have a lot to learn from each other, and we should be, right? We're all serving the same kids. So I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, likewise.
The other, so that was part of the initial request to eliminate the second assessment required in paragraphs in section 6A. So the other thing that came from my team is setting up some specific and measurable goals. The way that we did it in our comprehensive plan was we said that we would achieve a 15% growth over 3 years, or 5% a year. And so again, from my experience working in schools and leadership for a whole bunch of years, having that 5% a year was kind of always the expectation. We're going to grow by 5%. in performance. And growth has kind of more recently become part of that. You know, we're going to show an improvement of 5% per year in both growth and achievement. So my recommendation is that Sugar Valley do the same kind of thing, set up something specific. And Tracy, you've indicated that you already have something like that that's
Well,
written in your comprehensive plan.
Our comprehensive plan, it's not written as 5%, but each time we do a comprehensive plan, we either set in goals or a percentage base.
Mhm.
It's not always that way, but we do.
Okay,
I don't think that it belongs in an agreement. We already have it in place for the state.
okay.
We don't need it in an agreement where you can say, oh, you didn't meet your goals. And then that's another conversation the next 5 years. I'm not doing that.
I don't think, I know that I
Okay.
don't have any interest in setting a trap that would make
Okay.
it more difficult to,
I just wanted to make sure. And I wanted to say too, when we met on Friday, it was more for us sharing. And
Mhm.
so we did in good faith.
Yeah.
You also shared that in 9th through 12th, you're not doing your second assessment. And I want that to be a case for us too, because we find the most difficulty like you do within
Oh,
the 45-minute
yeah.
period.
yeah.
So I
no,
wanted to make sure that
fair.
was
Yep. Thank you
a
for
fair
bringing that up.
assessment.
Okay, and then the next point that you brought up was students in grade 12 who have successfully completed an Act 158 graduation pathway.
Mhm.
100%. The laws have changed since we set up 5 years ago. 100% agree. There's no reason once they pass, they have achieved their pathway. We shouldn't be putting them through extra testing.
Right.
100% with you on that. And then the request for an increased enrollment from 475 to 495. Administration leaves that to the KCSD school board to decide what they want to do with that. Similarly, with the CC annual appearance before KCSD board to describe annual comprehensive data report. Administration doesn't really have a stance. Our KCSD administration doesn't have a stance on that. That's kind of we'd rather leave that to the board to decide what they.
There was some clarification needed on that. When
On
we
what?
did,
I'm sorry.
some clarification needed on the ceasing the annual appearance.
Oh, okay.
We had said that you guys will submit to us the annual report. If we have any questions, we can email it back to you folks.
Right.
And then you'll send us a response. And then if we still aren't clear on it, you guys will come over and discuss it with us, correct?
That's not what we have in place now, but I mean, that's what you want now.
No,
currently?
that's
No,
what I
think-
thought.
I think that's what you said. We kind of discussed that at the last meeting.
Right.
And I do believe that's how they.
Worded it.
Yeah, so the only way you'd have to
worded it.
come over is if we really truly have
Mhm.
questions after. the-
Additional questions.
Yeah. You guys good with that?
Yeah, we should be good. Yeah.
Yes.
So it'd be like the third set of questions or
Yeah.
whatever.
How do you feel? You all right with that?
Yeah,
Jeff, are you all right with that?
I guess I could probably live with that one.
Okay. All right, so. Increasing your population, the 20, we've got to discuss that with the board.
Okay.
There's a lot of ifs and ands, buts with that. The biggest thing we need to discuss so that we can present something to the board is this second assessment and testing stuff. So. You want me to just read this to them?
So what do you think about the idea of including in the agreement that you will have, rather than a whole second level of testing, as that's written right now, just that you will have universal screener, diagnostic testing to help place students in tier 2 or tier 3, and then excuse me, progress monitoring testing that is a more fine-grained and shorter duration assessment to help students either continue with the support, move up a tier, or move down a tier.
So you're talking K-8 though?
And that's at the discretion of the charter school to select the tools or programs that are used for those purposes.
Of course, yeah.
If you guys want a different room to go talk or something, we can do that.
Search based.
guess we're good with that.
Okay, I think my assumption is it goes without saying that
Right.
the assessments that are being used are research and evidence-based, the kind of sort of things that are normally included
Yes.
in the curriculum we purchase. I
Yes,
feel like we don't
use
have to
Dibble,
include
so
that.
it's
Yeah, right,
already
yeah.
in place.
Okay, so Christine, did you get all that? Cause I'm not gonna write it all down, just want to know so that we can have something to present to the board.
Okay.
Anything else on there that we need to discuss?
Well, so the other part of the administration recommendation is around you said sometimes you do have specific percentage goals in your comprehensive plan and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the percentage base at this point.
In years past, we have set goals that have been around different numbers, so for
Right.
or different measures. So in the past, we have set goals for map testing growth.
Mhm.
So we have those measurable goals, and we have consistently achieve the goals we set in the comprehensive plan. That's how we were able to exit ATSI status in the state.
Right.
So yeah, so we've set those, and so I think after speaking with a number of these folks, I think that what we're hoping is that the language that ends up being placed into the agreement that we have would perhaps designate that we have measurable goals that we're setting.
Mhm.
And then we set those goals and work to achieve them. We want to make sure that whenever we are, whenever entering into this agreement, that we have the space to be able to set our goals to work toward achieving them, but also not to have, like you said, I think in your words, you said to be setting a trap. We
Yeah.
don't want to have something
Yeah,
that's
right. It's not
legally
our intent.
binding, something that can come
Right.
back in 5 years. We want to be able to set those goals and work toward them. We do that.
Yeah.
We want to keep up with that. Just having that language in, perhaps a comprehensive plan or annual plans, rather than necessarily having a number that's written down in the agreement per
Right.
se.
Because we have SMART goals. I mean, that's the way it has to be written in the comprehensive plan.
Right,
It's not
smart.
always a percentage, okay? It's a SMART goal. So I think if the state's okay with that, Keystone Central should be okay with that. Because they have to approve our plan.
Right.
So,
So then could we look at, for part of that, in 6A, when we're talking about the performance measures, that there is a specific and measurable goal for growth and achievement built into your comprehensive plan? And then
I
leave
I
kind of
don't
the other
think,
part of that to you in terms of what that looks like.
I don't know that that should be placed in the agreement. I'm not comfortable with you putting something in our comprehensive plan and making it be. We are a different facility and we're a charter school, so we should be allowed to set what we need to be setting. I agree we should have goals.
Mhm.
I agree with all that. I just don't think we should be made and stuck by something that you're placing into my comprehensive plan. Because then it's like you're directing us, and we should have, as a school, be able to do what we need to be doing for our students. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, we want to share and do what you're doing. I just don't want to be placed in that box, like I'm saying.
Yeah, so, and so I think the host district's responsibility is to hold the charter schools to a standard of performance.
Right,
And so what I'm looking at is trying to figure out, is there a way for us to write a standard of performance that doesn't constrain you in what you want to do as a charter school,
right.
but also has that oversight component of performance
Well,
goals?
I think if you put in place the assessments and all that other things that we have talked about, we're still trying to get the kids, we're always here to do what's best for the students.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I think the comprehensive plan is ours. We should guide it. I don't know that you should have control over that.
Well,
I guess
think-
that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because it's our comprehensive plan. It's for our school. We are running the school. So we want to do what we need to be doing for the students. I see what you're saying, but, and we're willing to do assessments and things like that. We're already doing that.
Sure.
I just don't want us to put us in this box that's saying, in our comprehensive plan, this is what you want. Okay, we want to do what's best for our school. So you're not actually there running the school or doing the things for the school. So I don't feel like you should have say in what our comprehensive plan looks like when the state approves it.
Okay.
Okay, That's my
What
opinion.
are your goals in the comprehensive plan?
The comprehensive plan is online on our website, so
I mean, what are they? Do you know what they are off the top of your head? I mean, what are your, I mean, do you have measurable goals in there as far as points, percentages? I mean, do you have something included in the plan? Like in our plan, I believe we're saying we're going to increase growth by 5% per year. I mean, it's written right there. It's right in the plan. A goal is something you shoot for. I mean,
agree
you
we have
always
SMART
make it,
goals.
but it's a goal. I mean, it's a target. It's something that you're aiming to achieve.
Mhm.
And if, I think you're looking at this as we're playing gotcha with you, and I don't see it that way. I think it is a goal. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, then you change your approach and you try something different.
And that's what we're doing, but
And-
he can explain the comprehensive plan.
But we're always looking for continued improvement
Yes, always.
all the time.
That's why we want to come visit some of the schools.
Right.
So,
That's why I want us all to work together so that
mhm.
everybody can improve.
So just to try to add some clarity, I guess, to your question, Mr. Johnston. In the past, we had set some growth goals for map testing so that we would push students to exceed the expected grade level norms for growth. So those were some that we have set in the past. As of recently, focused a lot more on instructional strategies that are aligned to some of the state test things, some of the aspects of the test that traditionally have been more challenging, like the open-ended responses and text-dependent analysis. Recent goals that we've set have to do with how frequently those kinds of strategies are implemented in classrooms and the level of achievement that we're seeing in the students as they're responding to those. So it's not something that's necessarily tied to state testments and then the results there, but it is something tied to the content of the state tests and the areas that we're finding that our students are falling short at this point or have room for a little bit of improvement. For mathematics, it comes down to open-ended responses about showing the explanations and being able to back up a response you're providing to those things with facts, being able to explain why and not just to get answers. So again, kind of aligning to more of the open-ended responses in PSSAs and Keystone exams. So it's the things that we're putting in place are measurable. It's things that are delivered within the classroom. And so it's something we put in place to kind of direct what teachers are doing in order to try to achieve higher outcomes with students. And we have seen that in some cases that those things are kind of working and some are not. And we are changing our approach in order to try to achieve those measures a little bit more accurately. So I guess just to explain a little bit about what's been recently in the comprehensive plans for us as far as measurable goals for achievement and growth.
But you haven't tied anything to the Future Ready Index or anything like that as far as measuring growth of students.
No, not just looking at those measures directly, but more about the practices that are aligned with the outcomes that are displayed in the Future Ready
Which is something I think you would want to do as far as this show what growth the students are making according to that measure. And I think that's what Dr. Edmond was referring to with the 5%. So show the growth of whatever cohort you have.
Yeah, I think we're kind of talking around the same issue here. It's just how you state it and which thing you're calling your goal. And then, so I'm looking at your comprehensive plan here. And, the measurable goal of the accelerated map growth. And I think the way that we were looking at it is we have a goal that's one level different than that, saying because of our accelerated map growth, which is because of all these other things, we will see a change in the future Reader scores by 15% over 3 years. So again, I don't think we're real far apart. It's just kind of
It's a different language, yes.
Yeah.
Just, if I could go back 5 years when we first did this agreement, what was said to us was if you don't want us focusing on the PSSAs and Keystones, you should put other assessments in place, which we were already starting to do anyway. So
Mhm.
we were hoping the next time we came back, tried to do this, we wouldn't have to focus on the PSSAs and Keystones because we had to have map growth, because that's what we were focusing on.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right, and the, I mean, the underlying theory behind that is if you have the map growth, then you'll see that in the,
right,
Future
you
ready
will,
scores.
you will,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, yes. Chris, can we go to another room at this? point?
Yeah, is this the one across the hall?
you know, let me check on that, make sure it's open for you.
Thanks.
We're gonna have a break for just a second while they are in another room discussing things. Jeff, you wanna hit? We're back live again, so go ahead.
Thanks, Chris.
So I guess we just wanted to just have a quick chat about, you know, what specifically, as far as the language that would be included in the agreement might say that we could agree to.
Okay.
So we're with you. I mean, you know, I think that what you said before is true, that we're talking about two sides of the same coin, you know, it's the same outcomes, you know, you're talking about outcomes, we're talking about process, but ultimately the outcomes are the desire. What we feel is that as long as we can agree that the language that would be entered into the agreement would be something to the effect of the charter school will set annual growth and achievement targets in the comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
I think that we can work with that because if we're being held to the standard of setting and working toward those goals, I think that's something that we are doing in some way. We would just change a little bit of the language that's there and what the targets are.
And I think from my perspective, that was the intent of what we were saying. And we came up with a number of 5% because it kind of echoes what we're doing.
Yeah.
You all have to decide what makes sense for you and your community. So from my perspective, that language would be fine.
All right. I think then we are in agreement there.
Do you have that all noted and how to word it for us to present to the
Can I
board?
send it to you guys? and
Yeah.
then-
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, please email it to us.
Yeah, if we're agreed on these 4 points at the end, then we'll go back through, our next step between Christine and I is to go
Okay.
back through the agreement, put all updated dates and make the changes that we're talking about here in that agreement, and then send it back and forth so we can both proof it
Yeah.
and make sure it's all square.
That's fine.
And we have to run it through our board, of
Yes.
course.
Yeah, it's sort of like what we did before, back and forth.
Right.
so.
Anything else?
So just to make sure I'm clear, the things that we would be adding in there are that you would have in support of your MTSS process, universal screener, a diagnostic, and a progress monitoring system. And then what we talked about, that you will have growth and achievement goals written into your comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
And that's kind of that whole first section about the secondary testing, right?
Right.
So that addresses that 6A part. So they would probably look like, right now, A talks about the secondary testing, so we change some of that, but we'd probably add B in there that talks about the growth and achievement goals. And then everything underneath that would just get changed from, you know, B and following to be C and following. I think it was B through F, so then it would be C through G for the rest of that stuff that's in there. Or letters correctly. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And then in the, we would just delete the part about, or we'd have to add in the part about students who have completed, successfully completed their Act 158 graduation pathway may be excused from additional assessments. We can just add that line into the testing section.
Mhm.
Just replace the language that had previously been about the state tests.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
so-
think A also states K to 12, so that'll have to be changed.
Okay.
K to 8.
So we had 4 things we needed to go over. We have all the wording squared away.
For those
No.
first two,
Right.
The second two is something I think our whole board has to talk a little bit more about. Oh, no, well, yeah, has to. Cause we agreed on you'll send us a report, we'll send you questions. If we have questions about your responses, then we'll have you come and talk to us about it.
Right. And we gotta make sure
So,
the
yeah.
board is okay with that, but
So we'll check on that before that, we'll change that part of the agreement. So some of it we can change real quick and just go back and forth on that. But that part of the things, as well as the number of students, we'll have to. spend
yeah,
some time with our-
that and the number of students is all the board has to work on.
Mhm.
So the administration will be okay with the wording that we just discussed, and we can write that up.
Yep.
And
We'll have it written up.
you okay with how that's worded?
Which one?
With the testing and assessments and all that?
I guess so, as long as we're, as long as they meet the criteria of what each of those are as far as being research-based and so on.
Oh, like,
think that goes
like
without
Dr.
saying.
Redmond
Yeah,
just
Right.
said.
we already have all that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
we're talking about the same programs, just updated versions of like Dibbles and
Right.
IXL and some of the other things that we talked about, those free resources. for-
Yep.
As I just had, since you're not gonna come over and present any longer, I guess, unless the board,
Well, they
Box
will
at
if
that.
we have questions after the questions.
right, I guess my question is what what information are you gonna send to us?
The
as
same
far as-
information, two presentations. So one with Mr. Phillips will have all the assessments stuff. And then I will send the basic stuff that you asked for before in the previous agreement.
It's all the same things.
So you'll send the same exact thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
except
and the
it'll
financial
come-
Instead of the
statement.
presentation, I believe they'll just be a hard
Yeah.
copy.
Right.
And I send that over anyway.
You'll send that to us in an email and then
Yeah.
each board member can go over it. And
Yes.
then if they have a question, then we can get together.
While we're on this, maybe we can talk about timeline for that. So right now it's set up for you to come to one of the March board meeting, I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
To do
13th.
this.
Yeah.
So then would we anticipate keeping that same March timeline for when you would come here if there's questions on the questions?
That's
which
up to you. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, you can make it April if you want. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Do you have a preference on any of that, or is it arbitrary to you?
It's not, well, not quite arbitrary because I think I want to make sure that you have time to get testing results and get all the information
Right.
you need. And so, and we have to allow for some of this back and forth
Right.
questioning to happen, right?
Yeah.
So if we say it still happens in March and you don't have all your information that you need in February, then it's hard for us to get the report in time.
Could
if that
we,
makes sense.
could we extend that out just a little bit?
To April. Should be
Yeah.
fine.
Say April, and then
Wouldn't
you
extend it
send
too
us
far,
your
so-
complete presentation. We look at it, we have
Mhm.
a week or so to go over it, and if we have questions, we can put them together, send them to you, you can answer them. And then if we have more questions after that, because we don't understand something,
Right.
then we'll ask you to come over and
Yeah, I think
answer those
the wording
questions.
is we have to have it in place before March. We could pick it a month, but I mean, if we can send it over in March, we will. If not, we'll wait till April. It's what you want.
So I wonder if we might be able to say, send the presentation by 1st of March within the understanding that if we need you to come over, that'll be for the April meeting.
I think that makes sense. And I mean,
Yeah.
you know, with,
Right.
we're still having to kind of identify what the tools or other programs we might have in place are. If the protocol doesn't really change from what we have in place now, that shouldn't be an issue.
Mhm.
The only thing that I would maybe want to put an asterisk by is that, depending on whatever those other programs might be that we're going to put in place for the diagnostics and then progress monitoring tools.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it would,
It shouldn't, because those are much shorter cycle
Right.
sorts of things. You can put those kind of wherever you want. I mean,
Yeah, I just want to make
monthly,
sure we're
weekly,
giving you
those-
enough time to do it.
honestly, I feel like what you just described is probably fine. March 1 to send over and then April meeting to get together if need be.
Yeah,
That makes
I'm
sense.
okay.
If need be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, should be good.
Jeff?
Okay.
Bill? Thoughts or questions? Okay, so I'm gonna assume that we're at a point right now where Christine could put all this together
Mhm.
and email all of us. And hopefully we can present the board the package and the contract, how we want to do it.
Yes, so we'll,
and get them to look at it.
we'll try to have a draft together for our board to look at tomorrow.
Right. Tomorrow night,
Next week.
next
I'm
week.
sorry, next week, thank you.
Gonna say you're jumping my calendar, man.
Yes. All my weeks are full.
I
so
got
can't tell
enough-
one from another.
I got enough trips to Lock Haven go on
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll have it for
for next week.
next week. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from you folks?
So if I could just, to make sure we're
Let's reiterate.
on, no, well, I think we're okay with that. I just want to make sure we have a common understanding about process from here. So once we have an agreed on, once we've agreed on the agreement, so to speak, then we, the board, have to give a 30-day notice to you to say the board is going to vote on charter school renewal. So it's conceivable that we could be ready for this in April. So we could set the 30-day notice perhaps if the board decides March 13th, then we would do the 30-day notice the 14th, which would put us for the board to have the hearing and make its determination on renewal in the April.
In the
16th, I
April
think it is,
meeting.
the April
Yeah.
voting session.
That sounds right. I mean, last time we back and forth and then I have to send it to my lawyer, obviously, once you have the formal agreement out. When is it? I'm sorry.
So our work session's the 3rd and our voting's the 10th.
Oh, so we'd have to do it. Because it's, well, it's 30 days is what's written into the law. We have to give you 30-day notice before the board does its final vote on renewal.
Yeah, we'll have to push it.
So
to-
it'll be to April, but I'll talk to our board chair about setting a special meeting. That part shouldn't take very long. Yes, 3 calendar days. So because the hearing and the vote should be a 5-minute affair. If that. Okay,
We're good with that?
Yes.
All right, well, I'm gonna call Jeff, any other questions, concerns? Bill? Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting adjourned at 4:37.